When we talk trucking jobs, most people think about drivers. On this episode of Driven Too Far, we're exploring other career opportunities in transportation. Hello, I'm Andrew Winkler with Chief Carriers, and this is Driven Too Far, the truth about trucking, a podcast that helps over-the-road truck drivers balance career and family. Hey, welcome back to Driven Too Far. On this episode, I kind of wanted to talk about the other opportunities that are available in our industry. So I think a lot of what happens when you talk to people and they ask what you do for a living and you say, I'm in trucking, most of the time people probably assume you're a truck driver. But that's not always the case. There's a ton of different opportunities and support positions in our industry that are critical. In fact, 20 to 30% of the jobs in trucking or transportation do not involve driving a truck. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that today. If you're a professional driver out there now, maybe at some point you're going to decide, I don't want to drive anymore. I need to get out of the truck for health reasons or for family reasons, whatever it is. But there's a lot of great jobs in this industry. And because of the knowledge you gain as a professional driver, you might be suited to step into some of these. So let's kick it off. The first and most obvious one is the dispatcher or fleet manager. That's somebody that typically is assigned a group of drivers, depending on how big that trucking fleet is. But typically, I think what I hear in the industry is about 30 to 40 drivers. And your job would be to make sure that those drivers are getting their home time, their miles, the truck's producing the revenue, whatever that number is that the company sets up. But it's a lot of interaction with the drivers. Now, that's changed over the years quite a bit. In my day when I started, it was phone calls from a payphone booth, and it was a lot of one-on-one conversations, and that's how we communicated. Now today, tech has taken over, so the role of the driver manager, fleet manager, has probably changed a lot too. But I believe if you're a people person and you enjoy working with people, a driver manager or dispatcher could be a great role for you, especially the knowledge that you've gained over the years as you've driven the truck. CDL instructor, have you ever thought about that one? So a lot of the technical schools, the community colleges, there's even some private schools out there probably looking for CDL instructors. And when I look back at my journey too, everybody, when I went through school and in even the schools we deal with today are former drivers. So I think that's a great fit. If you love to teach, if you love to take time and coach and work with people, this could be a great fit for you. It's typically an 8 to 5 type job, Monday through Friday. You get to see classes come in 6 to 8 weeks at a time, and they're out the door, and then you're off to the next class. I don't know if you get summers off like regular teachers. That probably depends on the school you go to, but I would guess there's some good holiday breaks in there and stuff too. So CDL instructor might be something you consider doing. Oh man, the dreaded freight broker, right? We all know what that is, but that's not really the dark side, I promise you. When you think about it, if you've had experience with freight brokers, what kind of experience have you had with them? Now, they get a bad rap in the industry because we all think they're stealing from us. They're, taking some money out of the load and they're keeping it for themselves. But if we're being honest with ourselves, you've probably worked with some really good freight brokers that they know exactly how to talk to a driver. They're essentially a dispatcher. They're going to give you all the right information you need the first time. And make sure that you're set up for success on that load, and they've done their best to share all the information with you so nothing's missing. On the flip side of that, we've probably all worked with some really bad freight brokers too. When I look at the industry as a whole right now, I think a lot of the big brokerages, the model that they use is hire young people out of college probably, and they teach them how to sell. They teach them how to do a little customer service and that type of thing. So that's the model of how they build the brokerage. But they don't know anything about transportation. They've never driven a truck. They've never been on your side of it. And in my experience, that's probably where we run into more problems with brokers is that I'll call them kids at this point, but it could be anybody young in the industry or inexperienced in the industries. They just don't know what the heck you guys do out there. So what they've been taught to do is simply give you this information and get on to the next call, and it's all about volume. They're not taking the time they need to make sure that you have the right information to have a successful trip. So I think that's where you could come in. When you think about your job as a professional driver, you know exactly what you need to be successful with that trip. So how could you jump into a role like a freight broker and make a difference? How about a recruiter? Do you love to talk to people? It's essentially a sales job. You're selling what your company has to offer for drivers. I happen to have a great one in my company, and she's fantastic. She goes over and above. Not only is she a people person, meaning she just loves to be around people, she likes to do the right thing for people. She loves to help people be successful. So that's a great quality for somebody that would want to be a driver recruiter. Again, it goes back to that knowledge that you've gained over the road. Now, my recruiter, she's never done that, obviously, but she's been around trucking and had enough experience. Now she totally understands the gig. But a lot of them don't. A lot of them are, man, I think of some of the recruiters I know in the industry, and they're just dry people. They're just there processing applications, and their job is just to get so many phone calls, so many applications in the door, so many applications approved for orientation and move on. And they really don't put the people or the care factor into the job. So if you're that kind of person, if you're very passionate about people and wanting them to be successful, you might be a great driver recruiter. Trucking tech, hey, I've seen it flip-flop both ways, whether it's driver to a tech or tech to a driver. But that is certainly a great way for you to stay in the industry. Maybe you just love the trucks themselves. You have some mechanical knowledge. There's some carriers out there that are more than willing to put you through school. That's how we need technicians in the industry just as bad as we need good professional drivers. So there are some companies out there that you could get into, and I'm more than sure they would put you through technical college, nights, weekends, whatever that looks like, or sponsor you through college in return for an agreement that you'll come back and work in their shop for X amount of years or something like that for the investment. But don't think that's out of reach for you. The other neat thing is a lot of carriers understand that the amount of tools a technician has to have nowadays and the cost of those things, it's incredible what our techs have invested in their toolboxes. I mean, literally $50,000 to $100,000 sometimes. It's insane. So how do you get that? Is it built over time? Yeah, sure, in some cases. But there's also some sponsorship programs that way where the carrier will invest an initial set of tools for you to get you started and get you rolling in your new career. Operations manager, that's probably one step up over the dispatch. They kind of oversee the day-to-day operations of that fleet. They may manage a group of people that is the dispatcher, the customer service reps, in some cases maybe sales or load planners. So they're managing the interaction in and out every day of that truck line. So they're probably responsible for driving that revenue number in the company and to some point the profit and loss, if you will. But they're responsible for the productivity of the trucks, driver turnover and satisfaction, things like that is what they're overseeing. So it would be difficult probably to jump from truck to an operations manager role, but that could definitely be a stepping stone you look for down the road. Safety manager, whether you love them or hate them, the safety person is critical to our industry. And I have seen drivers transition from driver to safety person. Maybe it's directly to a safety director or manager role. Maybe there's an intermediary position there too, where they come inside in the office and they work as that safety assistant or some kind of safety specialist and then ascend into a safety director role. So some of these you just got to put in your time and get the experience. But think about the base that you have, the base of experience you have as a professional driver, because if there's one thing that's happened to you over the years that you've been behind the wheel is, they've been preaching safety, safety, safety to you. So you know a lot, and probably more so than a lot of people that sit behind the desks about safety when it comes to these trucks. Then there's always the owner-operator, the independent type path too. A lot of you know about that career pathway, so to speak, that a lot of times that's the next step. I'm a company driver. It's a natural kind of thing to maybe say, I want to own my own truck, start my own small business. But if you do that, make sure you're aligned with a company that's going to help you with some education and stuff, because it is a change from going to a company employee, to a small business owner all of a sudden. So there's some education and training and some things there. You got to have a good support system within that company to make sure that you're going to be successful. But that's a great one, and we see a lot of drivers take that step as well. So that's just a few of the opportunities I see out there. And I want to take you through just my own journey real quick, just so you know where I come from before, I became the host of this podcast for you. But I actually started my career in the mid-90s as a student driver. So I started where most of you did too. I went through a school for 6 or 8 weeks. I actually had my Class B at the time, and then got my Class A through the schooling and stuff. I drove over the road. I pulled a reefer trailer. I ran long haul over the road type stuff. So I loved going down into the Carolinas and the southeast part of the country. That was probably my favorite, just because of the views and how pretty it was with the green trees and the hills and the mountains and all that great stuff. Plus it kind of kept you out of the congestion of the Northeast and some of the cities that way. But yeah, so I started as a student driver, and I didn't drive a long time. It was just a year or so. But I had also made it known to the company I was working for that I had a 2-year degree in accounting. So trucking or a driver probably wasn't my end game, so to speak. It wasn't what I envisioned myself doing for a long time. But I was single and I was loving it at the time. But I also made them known that, hey, I would be interested if there was ever an office opportunity that opened up. So it did. I came in as a dispatcher. I dispatched for a couple years. Then I actually ascended to an operations manager role. And I'll just tell you how that happened is the operations manager we had vacated the job, and we went without one for about 6 months. So I saw an opportunity just to be a leader in the room. I don't know that I was specifically gunning for the job or thought they would ever consider me for the job, but just the opportunity to be a team player in the room and be a leader and help my teammates in dispatch and all their roles, I got noticed. So when it came time, I did have a conversation with the vice president at the time, and he says, hey, would you be interested in kind of officially taking over this role? So I did that for a lot of years. Because of that and the way that kind of happened, the owner of the company took notice too, and he was smart enough to know that he needed to have some kind of succession plan in his company. He wasn't going to be able to work forever, and what's that next level look like, or next group of people that come in and run the company. So they were kind enough to consider me for that, put me in kind of a training position where I rotated into safety. So I was a safety director for a couple years. I helped them open a new terminal. So I had actually moved away for a little bit just to do that and come back. And then my boss retired, and then I was able to get that vice president role. So that was my career in my first 20 plus years of trucking, student driver to vice president. And it just took a little bit of time. But again, it was about the knowledge you gain and having a goal or an end game. I didn't want to drive truck my whole life, but I loved the industry. I loved everything about it, the fast pace. I loved the problem solving side of it, stuff like that. I loved helping people. Probably one of my favorite things to do, and I've told you this in other podcasts, is to see other people's success. So if I can play a role in your success, that's what I want to do. And today I'm a general manager of a different company, just an opportunity that popped up, wasn't necessarily looking, but it was an opportunity to run my own company. And I took that. I've been here now 6 years. So that's my 30 years in the industry is student driver to a GM. And I don't see any reason why you couldn't, follow a similar path like that if that's what you want to do. So trucking has a place for everybody, whether you want to be a driver and stay a driver, whether you want to do something else or find some other kind of passion. It's a great industry and there's plenty of opportunities there. So don't be afraid to ask. Go talk to somebody, kind of drop some seeds, drop some ideas along the way. Talk to your safety people, talk to your dispatcher, talk to your ops manager, just different people within your organization that, hey, if the opportunity ever came up, I'd be interested in talking about that. Then when they do, hopefully your company's proactive, and when they do have job openings, don't be afraid to apply. You may not get it the first time. Hopefully your company's courteous enough to at least extend an interview to you and you can have a conversation to learn more about what they're looking for. And then if you aren't able to snag it the first time, you still got something in mind there to work towards. So there you go. I never thought I would have a career in transportation or trucking. Wasn't what I set out to do out of high school. Thought I wanted to be an accountant, do something like that because I had some family doing those kind of things. And I quickly learned that I didn't want to sit in a cubicle and crunch numbers all day. I needed more action than that. So I found trucking and I've never got out of it. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Driven Too Far. For more opportunities in the trucking industry, check us out at chiefcarriers.com, and the link is in the show notes.